even though it's scary when you buy your first property,
Sure.
and then it's scary when you kind of transition from one strategy to the next.
Right.
Each time you do like that scary thing, it builds your confidence.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, that actually wasn't so bad.
Right. All right, guys, thank you for coming back. We are still here in Dallas. We're at the Investor Fuel event. My good friend Dia's here. We met in Phoenix, right? I always have a hard time, like, what city was I in? Where am I at today?
So much.
Too far too much.
Yeah.
So you came down for the event. We got you a VIP ticket. What have you thought so far?
So first, thank you so much for having me.
Oh,
I
yeah.
really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And what I've thought so far is, I mean, it's so, for me, I'm just getting started, so I love hearing people who have been there, done that, and now they're doing big things, they're doing amazing things, and one, it's super inspiring, but then the second aspect of it is like, whoa, you need to sit down and get your stuff together so you can start to grow and scale, and so I feel like that's been really helpful as far as starting to think about what I need to do in order to have a real business and be able to scale.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I think at any level that you're at, you know, and I've done this for 20 years, you always see somebody up there that's doing something better than you, and you're like, oh, what am I doing with my life? What have I been doing for the last 20 years? This kid's 12, and he's doing $1 million a month in wholesale fees, and like, how am I screwing this? How am I not doing this right? So being in these events for me has always been great. Obviously meeting amazing people, but just to see how other people who are in your industry are doing the very same thing, and just always being exposed to new stuff. So I really do enjoy it. So what are some of like the key takeaways from the event?
Yep. So I would say my number one takeaway is, like, I need to be doing this right now.
Yes.
Like, we need to stop this, and I need to be documenting my processes, putting my systems in place, because once I have that in place, then I'll be able to hire the right people to help me get to where I'm trying to go. And because right now I'm doing a lot of a one-woman show. And it's exhausting.
But you're crushing it as a one-woman show.
Oh, well, yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. But being a one-woman show, you can only go so far.
That is true. That is
true. Like, I'm aging myself. I'm not trying.
Are you though? You're 18. You look like you're 18. Come on, you're doing good.
And so, but the thing is, you know, you really want to have the right people around you, and you know, have those systems in place in order to get to where you're trying to go.
Right. Well, that's important. And that was something that took me a long time to learn. So, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs were kind of hustlers and that entrepreneurial mindset. And for me, I was the super control freak, like I can do everything, and I'm going to work 18 hours a day, and nobody can do it as good as me. And that was it's an incredibly flawed, you know, thinking. There's nobody that runs a large company that's making millions of dollars that does it all themselves, because there's only 24 hours in the day. Math and science tell us that, right? Like, it's 24 or 12 and 12, however you, whatever clock you're on, and there's just only so many things you can do. And like, after a while, you'll just burn yourself out and you'll plateau, or there's just a ceiling that you get to, and without bringing people in to help, you know, you just can't get it all done.
So I can relate to what you just shared, because I'm just used to like doing everything myself and wanting to do everything myself. And whenever I graduated from ASU with my undergrad, I got my first big girl job in corporate America.
What was your big girl job?
My first big girl job was, I was a chief of staff to a VP who was managing a team of about 2,000 people.
Well, that's kind of impressive. That is a big girl job.
Let me tell you, the only reason how I got that job is I was just blessed. I interviewed, I was not the most qualified. I just wasn't. But
well, there was something about you that made them pick you, because somebody that works at that level, you know, one thing I always tell people is I manage a lot of people in stores and everything, and people that are in a leadership or position of power, they don't surround themselves with idiots. They want other high performers around them, because it makes them look good, you know, and helps them, you know, do their life. So there was something. Something.
Well, I appreciate it. But one thing that I want to encourage others is, if you're just getting started, or you just finished school, or you're entering into something new, I feel like one thing that's been really helpful for me is to, one, present yourself really well, to come with a servant mindset, and to just put as much as you can forward. You know, so just show up and be prepared, show up and be on time,
work hard,
asking questions and work really hard. And I think my leader at that time, he saw that in me, and he was the one who really opened up my mind to delegating, because he saw how hard I was working and how much I was doing, and he would say, Dia, why don't you ask so and so to help you with this? Why don't you ask so and so to do this? How much time did you spend working on this Excel?
Right.
Susie knows how to do that in 10 minutes.
Yeah. But you're secretly thinking, but I'm better than Susie.
No.
I can do it better than Susie.
So there was this meme that I recently saw on Instagram.
Yeah.
And this girl, she got this job, and on her resume she put Excel, and that was one aspect of the job that she had to do.
Right.
And so it came time for her to actually use Excel, and she didn't know how to do it, and she goes, I thought you meant excel at the job, not know how to use Excel.
That was 2 L's, this is 1 L. I know. That's funny.
But it was a great learning experience.
Yeah.
And
How long did you do that?
I did that for 2.5 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what lessons do you take out of being, at the top of the company and being around those kind of C-level people, the people that run the company?
Yeah. So some of my takeaways from that is they have such big picture thinking. They're so future and forward thinking.
Right.
And so whenever you're thinking about, what's our strategy, what are we trying to accomplish, it's not just like the right here, right now, because our decisions that we make right now really impact our, the future state of the business. So I think just thinking more future forward.
Yeah.
And something that I really appreciated and valued about my leader was, even though he was at the top, he still wanted to be so connected to people who were doing the work in order to get us to where we were trying to go. And I think as leaders, especially whenever you're at a high level, like you're meeting with other high level people and you guys are talking like big picture and we're doing this and we're doing that, but also making sure that you're connected to the people who are, really helping your business grow.
Right.
Because without them, you don't have a business.
Yeah.
And so, thinking big picture, but then at the same time making sure you're really connected to the people who are doing the work every day.
Yeah, you from the vice president all the way down to the janitor, everybody plays a piece. Like everybody has a role to play in that business. Yeah. And if it's not clean, your people can't work. Everybody is all connected. It's all very symbiotic and all of that. That's amazing. Yep. So how do you apply that to you and as you're starting to build your team?
Yes. So I learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
I adore this man. Like I appreciate him. The biggest thing that he did was be a servant leader.
Yeah.
And that is something that I can see in other people, and I can also tell when someone is not a servant leader. And I don't want to call it the opportunity.
Okay.
But it was a lesson, and like my next leader was the complete opposite. It was everything was about him, and it was a really tough season for me to experience after having such an amazing servant leader.
Yeah.
But I would still say it was a blessing because it made me like really realize that I never want to be like that to someone else.
Yeah.
And when other people are doing that, then I can recognize it and I can help people in those type of situations because I went through it.
Or get out of that situation.
Yes.
Well, and I think that's very important. It's, it's the yin and yang, right? Yeah. If you only see goodness in your life, you'll never understand what the other side of that is. So I think that was probably important to experience and realize that's what I don't want to be.
Yeah.
That's not the dickhead that I don't want to treat my people like that.
Yeah.
And it's so important, especially to run any kind of larger organization. The only way that you're going to really succeed is everybody that works with you has to understand the vision and believe in the vision and want to move the organization forward, and whether it's customer service or whatever it is. And it's far easier when you have a servant leader who wants to come out and wants to talk to you and know what's going on and how are your kids, and to whatever extent that can be, right? It gets harder the more people you have. But no, that's fascinating and very interesting.
Yes.
So go ahead.
No, so as far as like how I apply that to my business, it's just really being people focused.
Yeah.
So I'm in the service business, I'm in the sales business.
Me too.
And so, well, we all are, right?
Yeah, we all are, right? One way or the other.
In some way, we are. And so like really being focused on, I am here kind of as like a vessel to serve others. Right. And so really taking the time to like understand what it is that, my clients are trying to accomplish, and making sure, then I provide the best solution based on what they're trying to accomplish. So I think it's about listening, it's about removing self, and focusing on them.
Right.
And I feel like those are some of the things that I learned in my previous role that is helping with my business today.
Nice. I think that where you talk about removing self, that's really important because it's so easy for us to have these thoughts or these biases or opinions, and because it's something that's good or bad, maybe foundational to us, it's very easy to project that onto everybody else, right? And say, oh, well, everybody must think that because I think that. And that can be a trap that you can fall into that will lead you down sort of the wrong path, and you're not serving the best interest of your clients.
Yes. I remember one time I was in the kitchen with my mom, and this is probably about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And she goes, Dia, you're kind of being really selfish.
Mom, that's not nice.
And I go, what do you mean? And she goes, and she started listing out ways that I was being selfish. And for a while, like whenever you're single and you live by yourself, or like you're just doing your own thing.
Oh, come to think about it, my mother told me I was very selfish too.
And you just don't have to think about other people. And so whenever you start to be around more people, you almost have to switch your mindset. But I really appreciated her having that conversation with me, because then it made me do some self-reflection. And then it also made me think about future, like, okay, how do I want people to feel when they interact with me? How do I want to show up whenever I'm working with other people? So I always appreciate having those people in my life who can communicate to me like, hey, there's an opportunity for you to improve and to do better,
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think you have to have family and friends, that core group around you that can say, hey, you're not being very nice today. Last night I was talking to somebody, and he was talking about somebody else who was being a tad on the pretentious side and all of this, and I'm like, that's not good. And we were kind of back and forth, and my final word to him was like, hey, if I ever get like that, you need to check me. He's like, absolutely, like I need that, right? Because it can happen, right? Like we can all have that bad day where we act a little foolish, right? So very important. So tell me about your business.
Okay. So I'm about 1.5 years into my business, and there's really two aspects of the business.
And you're based out of Phoenix.
I'm based out of Phoenix,
right?
Absolutely. So I'm a realtor. I work with investors and builders. And then I recently joined a new team. I'm with EXP, and a lot of our clients are in the luxury space, so helping them buy and sell homes in that area.
Have you So you've dealt with people buying maybe like median house prices and the luxury. Tell me about some of the differences and what's maybe easier and what's a challenge.
So they're both so different, but they're similar. And so what I mean by that is, in the luxury space, they have higher standards, which I think is completely fine because of,
if you're paying $8 million for a house, you should expect certain things, right?
And then in the medium price range, one thing that I see a lot of clients do is, they're looking at homes and they're just like, oh, I just don't see anything. And sometimes I sit them down and I say, okay, this is the house how it is today. You can actually change it. And so then I start to talk with them on, okay, well, let's have a contractor come in and talk about designs and stuff like that to make the house fit them. So I feel like sometimes it's hard for them to visualize it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Because you're an amazing designer, because I see some of your stuff, and we're in that world of real estate and investors. How does somebody who's not in that world react to that? Like, you want me to tear apart a wall and to me that'd be like, oh, just go down and we're just going to change the spark plugs on your car. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. That's very scary stuff.
So some things that I do is sometimes I'll even use a website where you can do a model of the home.
Oh, really? They have that?
Yeah, you can do the design of the home, and then you can showcase of what the home can look like if you do some changes. And this helps people. A lot of people are really visual, right? So they want to be able to see it. So this helps them connect to the vision, and they say, oh, okay, this could actually work. So that's been something that's been really helpful.
Well, that's cool. So have you had some amazing success stories where you've been able to help them do that?
Not yet.
No? Okay.
Not yet, but I'm glad that I have it as a tool for when the time comes.
Sure. Wow. So do you find, if you had to pick one, you obviously pick luxury? Is it because the commissions are better, or do you just like dealing with them? And
so, of course, the commission is great.
Commissions are far better, right?
In the luxury space, but I like luxury because I'm a huge fan of design. And so in the luxury spaces, the design and the architectural background behind it is so beautiful to me. So I'll walk in these homes, I'm just like, who thought thought of that.
I know.
How did they take that vision to get there? So I love that area.
Well, first off, you guys should definitely be following her because she posts all these really cool, amazing houses that you're in, and it's fascinating. I love looking at it. But I have the same thing where, I am good with gray walls and brown floors, and it will look great, but I can't do accent. My brain doesn't work that way. It's not the attribute that I have. So I love watching it, and I feel like the designers are like artists where they see something as a blank canvas and they can just picture how it should look, and it's just stunning. Logan, his wife, is just amazing at it too down in San Antonio, and I love being around people and seeing what they can create. It's fascinating.
Yep, I love it too.
Yeah.
And then the second part of my business is more so on the investing side.
Right.
So this year I bought a duplex, and I'm in the process of transitioning it from a long-term rental to a mid-term rental. Mm-hmm. And anytime you do something for the first time, I don't know if you can relate to this, but it just feels hard.
Yeah,
because you've never done
everything
it before.
is driving a car the first time was hard, right?
Yes.
Skipping rope the first time was hard until you do it once or twice.
Yeah, but I feel like one thing that I'm super proud of is even though it's scary when you buy your first property, and then it's scary when you kind of transition from one strategy to the next.
Right.
Each time you do that scary thing, it builds your confidence.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, that actually wasn't so bad.
Right.
And so right now I'm in this transition phase. So I'm really excited to see how it performs as a midterm rental.
Yep.
I feel super grateful because so many people have poured into me as far as how to keep it occupied and these different programs that I can do. So I'm excited.
And you're in such a great area, Phoenix. There's so many investors and coaches and mentors and all that. Yeah. So what made you decide to go from short-term to mid-term?
So just the numbers.
Yeah.
I've talked to several other, investors, and they had shared with me how, what their long-term rentals were performing as, and then what their mid-term rentals were doing, and it was a significant difference.
So define for people who may not know kind of the difference between short-term, long-term, and mid-term.
Yep. So short-term typically, well, everyone has different standards, but I would say 30 days or less.
So like Airbnb, VRBO.
Exactly. And then midterm is technically anything above 30 days to under a year.
Okay. Interesting.
And so you can still put that on Airbnb, you can still put that on VRBO, but what I'm focused on is putting it on Furnish Finder because the duplex is near about 3 different hospitals.
Oh, okay.
And so I really want to be able to provide a space for travel nurses.
Right.
And then there's also an insurance company that I'm going to partner with. And so what they do is they provide housing for people who something happened to their house, maybe their home burned down or something like that. So I'm going to partner with them as well.
We did that one time. I had these 2 doctors that their house burned down, and we had a 5-bedroom, 7-bath house on the golf course, and they rented it for a year at top dollar.
Yes.
It was the doctors were a little challenging to have as tenants, but the money was really amazing. So you're finding midterm rentals better cash term, but what about the big Airbnb craze the last couple of years? Everybody flocked to that business.
Yeah, so right now, it's been kind of trending with a lot of investors that their Airbnbs aren't as occupied as they were during COVID. Yeah. And so that is a big pain point for a lot of investors right now. And so that's why I decided to go with the midterm, but also supplement for short term whenever it's not being occupied as a midterm. So it's really great because I can flex between the two because it's furnished.
Right. Oh, amazing. But you don't want to be in the long-term rental business.
Eventually I will once I start to grow my portfolio.
Yeah.
I think from a management perspective is going to be, much easier to manage a portfolio of long-term rentals, and then you cherry pick the midterms and short terms that you want within there.
So all of my rentals are all long-term, and they started out long-term. So when the big Airbnb craze came out a couple of years ago, people said, well, do you want to turn a couple? Because I have some in some touristy type areas, right? And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I could. Feels like a lot of work.
Yes.
I could just put somebody in there and maybe I make a little bit less cash flow, but I don't have that management of the turnover of the unit and all that stuff. So we just kept all of ours as long term. But my brother's girlfriend, she does a lot of the Furnish Finders, and she's had amazing success with it.
That's great. Yeah. Long term is definitely lower, typically.
Yeah, well, not always. Yes, you're right. There are some conundrums in the long-term rental business, right? Like anything. every person, it's funny, I tell them, every tenant comes in and they're, Mr. David, thank you so much. It's a beautiful house. I'm going to be your best tenant ever. And some of them are. And some of them are not.
Okay, so David, I need to hear your worst tenant story.
Oh, I have a lot of stories. Those doctors were a challenge. Again, beautiful 5-bedroom, 7-bath, 3-story house on the golf course. And they were very entitled. And this was back in the beginning when I self-managed. So they would call on like Friday at 3 o'clock. The light bulb's out in my ceiling fan. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll get somebody over there Monday. No, we're having a party tonight at 6 o'clock. I need somebody here right now. Okay. So, and of course, this house had 12-foot ceilings. So I'm over there dragging this ladder. Big boys climbing the ladder. So they were very, very entitled. And they were always late. These two they were in town. If I had said their names in Chattanooga, like people would know who they were. I'm like, how are you late every single month?
Right.
Like, you know, the insurance company's paying the bulk of your rent. What little bit, just get it paid. So they were a challenge. But I've also, at the other end of the spectrum, also had Section 8 rentals. And typically, they're actually very smooth. Very, very smooth. If the state doesn't, or the government doesn't pay all of their rent, they pay the majority of it, and then they would just pay their little portion. They were pretty good. In the middle, hit and miss. You never know what you're going to get. I had one tenant who we didn't know had kind of fled the area, and the FBI ended up at our office.
You're harvesting. Was it called harvesting a fugitive?
Well, I didn't know that they had an issue. Here's what happened is somebody came and said, hey, I want to rent this little 2-bedroom, 1-bath in downtown Chattanooga. I'm a music producer, and I have one of my rappers and his girlfriend from Atlanta want to move up here. And I'm like, okay, sounds great. He's, going to pay. It's going to be fine. Well, everything was okay. Like, I didn't go over there. It's a long-term rental, so I'm not over there checking on it all the time. Well, all of a sudden, they were just gone. And the FBI showed up at our office. And this is back in the day when we did a lot of bandit signs. So, like, the police didn't love us. Code enforcement, we were not their friends. So my wife calls me, and she's like, the FBI's here, and they want the folder for Sharp Street. I'm like, well, give them whatever they want because they're the FBI. And I said, should I come back? Because I'm like, we can't all be in jail, right? Somebody has to post bond, right? She's like, yeah, I think it's okay. So I got back, and I said, well, what happened? She's like, well, I really don't know, but they were very interested in these tenants. I'm like, well, they just kind of bailed out on us. Great. Well, like 2 days later, the U.S. Treasury Department shows up with badges. They are more scary than the FBI. Okay. Those people have zero sense of humor. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? Well, there was some fraud going on there. I'm like, oh, okay. They said, we've been over the house and looked in the windows. It's all cleared out. Did you take some stuff? I'm like, oh, well, I have this laptop and a couple of things. I'm going to take that from you. I'm like, well, it was a laptop. Maybe I was going to sell it, try to recoup some rent. No, we're taking all of that. I'm like, okay, that's weird. I really didn't know what it was all about. Mm-hmm. And then it just never heard anything for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years.
Wow.
And then I started getting calls from this guy. Hi, I'm such and such. I'm the assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Atlanta. And please call me back. We have a matter to discuss with you. And I'm like, this felt like a prank call. So I got 2 messages. I'm like, oh, I better call this guy back. Right. Like, this actually feels like it might be serious. Right. So I called him back, and he's like, hey, do you remember this guy, Sean? He rented a property from you? Yeah. Well, I'd like to know everything that you know. I'm like, well, it's 2 years ago. You have you guys are the ones that came and got the full? Yeah, okay. I'm like, well, they rented the place. They did this. Okay. Well, we need you to come testify. I'm like, whoa, what? He said, yeah, there's a federal trial on these dates, and you need to come to Atlanta. You'll need to come in here. Yeah. You'll need to go through security, and I'll meet you, and we'll bring you in. I'm like, well, I'm a little nervous. Like, I've been to court, like Tallgrass Court and stuff a bunch, but like federal court's it's a completely different deal. So I went in there, and they had me waiting in this big room, and this guy finally comes and gets me. He's like, follow me. I'm like, okay. So we go down all these hallways, and we get to this room with big double oak doors that are 15 foot tall. They open it up, and I go in there, and it was like everybody just turned around and looked, and it was very serious. And I really puckered up. I got very nervous very quickly. Right. And they bring you up, and the defendants are there, the U.S. attorneys are there. I go swear me in and answered some questions, and I got out of there as quick as I could. And the dude ended up, here's what happened. I skipped this part of the story.
Okay.
So I'm sorry. So what was happening is they were filing false tax returns. So this house is a little two bedroom, one bath.
Right.
And the postman was getting all of these tax return checks, 2007 Sharp unit A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 5, 6, 2, 4. So this guy's bringing these checks to the house every day, and he's like, this place is not that big. So he kicked it up to a postal inspector, who kicked it up to the Treasury Department,
Wow.
who the FBI. So anyways, this guy went to jail for like 40 years for tax fraud. And it was in our place, and we had no idea. And going to federal court, the lesson here is do not ever go to federal court, because it is very scary, and the feds never lose.
Yeah.
Like if they get you all the way to court, they are not losing. And it was not a fun experience, even just testifying there.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So everyone should become a landlord.
Everybody should become a landlord.
Story.
Yeah, I would say that, like, we've made a lot of money wholesaling and flipping houses, drastically more money and equity in holding those rentals for the long term. Like, if you want to be wealthy, it is in rentals. You are going to get wealthy in rentals, because it's long term, and you have write-offs and depreciation and all the tax benefits that come with real estate that you don't get in. If I flip a house and make $100,000, that's great, but it's ordinary income, and they're going to charge me 28 or 30% taxes, whatever it is. So yeah, I do believe that rentals are definitely the way to go.
Yeah, and that was really my entry point to real estate. So I was reading a bunch of books, and I remember I was at this conference probably about 3.5 years ago. And I sat down with this lady, and we just hit it off. We had such a really rich conversation.
Yeah.
And she was telling me how she was doing a house hack. So she purchased a house in Atlanta, was planning to live in it for a year, and then turn it into a rental. And she had a friend who had done this before, and they were making pretty good cash flow on the property. So she ended up doing this, and she told me, how much she was making every month, and she was sharing all the numbers with me. And so I was like, so this is a thing.
Yeah.
And then I started to, read some books about, real estate investing and buying homes and really understanding this is the way to build wealth.
Sure.
Buying homes. And so that was when I made it one of my goals. I said, okay, Dia, you are going to buy properties and you're going to hold on to them. And it took me about 2.5 years to, make that vision or that goal come to life. But I'm excited that it took place.
So if you could go back in time for the people that are listening, and you say it took you 2.5 years, if you could go back and talk to yourself from the day you made that decision, would you say, do this faster? What are you waiting on?
Faster.
Yeah.
Because at that time, prices, I remember I went to go look at a condo, and the price of it, I think it was maybe like $250 or something like that. And now that same condo is going for like $400K in Phoenix. And so, but I didn't end up buying it because I was too scared. Yeah. I was just scared.
I get it.
So that's why I didn't do it.
Yeah.
But everything is a lesson and things work out. But for anyone who, wants to get started in real estate, I honestly think doing a house hack, buying a house, living in it for a year is a great entry point to just get your feet wet and get started. And
I've always told people, get a fourplex. You can get an FHA loan with a fourplex, live in one, rent out 3.
Yes.
And anything you could do, you got to get started. Yeah. Getting started is the hardest part.
It is. It really is.
It's easy to sit and think about it for 2 years and get distracted, and then you change your mind and you do something else. But, once you get started and you do that first one, and then the second one is not quite as hard as the first one. But after you do 2, you're like, oh, this is a thing, and I can make this work. Yeah. Like, I'm definitely as smart as these other people, right? Like let's get this done. So what does the future look like for you?
So besides
being amazing,
besides world domination, So the future right now, I think one thing that I continue to hear and learn is when you focus on too many things at the same time, you're not going to get good at anything because you're doing too many things. And I'm the queen of doing too much.
Are you?
Doing too much to be my middle name because I do too much.
What do you think makes you want to do that?
I just feel excited about life. Yeah. And so it just makes me want to do different things. Thankfully, most of the things that I do are still in like the same areas, so I'm not like jumping around drastically, and they're connected. But I do know that there is value in having more singular focus, to really craft your skill and get better.
Right.
But as far as like the future holds, what I see right now is, right now I'm going to focus on, being a realtor, working with builders, working with investors, people who want to purchase, homes, and then continuing to buy rentals, probably do some fix and flips as well.
Yeah.
And then like long term, I want to be more passive.
Right.
And do like multifamily.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So then I can travel the world.
Yeah. Where do you want to go?
So I've done all the continents except Antarctica.
Okay, I've been close. We went right around South America. We were close, but I haven't been to Antarctica. What's your favorite place to go to?
My favorite place to go to, I love Indonesia.
I have not been there.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's just a beautiful place. Whenever I was there, I just felt just so at peace. Like life just feels so simple.
So relaxed.
Yeah. And it was just a beautiful experience.
Yeah. How long were you there?
So I've been twice, and each time I stayed, I think, between like a week and a half, like 2 weeks for each time.
Did it feel like not enough?
Not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's your second place? Let's say, pick a continent. Europe? Have you been there? Where do you like that?
Yeah, I've been to Europe.
Okay.
But honestly, I really want to spend time in Asia.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. We did a month in China, Singapore, through all the cities, and it was amazing. I absolutely loved it, and they were some of the nicest people, and they were so kind and generous to us. For me, I love going to Europe, Paris, Amsterdam, Prague. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. In the Med, Turkey, just beautiful, beautiful area. South America was okay. It was okay. It was cool to go see penguins, and then go all the way to the bottom there. Yeah, those are probably some of my favorite places. Have not been to Southeast Asia though. I'd love to go to Thailand and Vietnam and all that stuff.
Yeah, and one thing, especially if you're in real estate and as you start to kind of build wealth and make money, it's not all about money.
It's not.
And one thing that I talk to a lot of really successful people, and they're telling me that they're not traveling or they're having like these amazing experiences with their friends or their families. And then one guy asked him, I was like, okay, well, do you have a passport? And he didn't even have a passport.
Oh, I know. We talked about that yesterday. I'm like, how do you not have a passport?
Yes.
What if you have to go? Go where? I don't know. Anywhere. You have to run.
Yes. And so I told him right then and there, I was like, book the appointment and get your passport.
Yeah.
Because we can get so trapped into just being in our own little bubble.
Sure.
And, we're going through our days and spending time with our families and stuff.
Right.
But there's this big world out there.
There is.
And then the big world is like, come see me. So you just need to go.
Well, I think that's a trap that we fall into as entrepreneurs because we get so focused and so driven on what the goal is and getting there. And I don't believe that entrepreneurs have balance. I think that's nonsense. You're not going to have it. Our brains aren't built that way. But you do have to set some time away to have those peak life experiences and really enjoy the fruits of all of your hard work. And travel is the greatest thing ever. And just to kind of wrap up, like one thing you just said is, I tell people this. I had one of my guys that worked for me, and he came in the office, and he's like, why do you still do this? Like, surely you have enough money, you cannot do this. I said, well, I want to tell you something that's going to sound really weird, and you're going to think I'm full of crap. It's never about the money. It's not. It's about accomplishing a goal or doing something with amazing people that you want to surround yourself with. The money's an awesome byproduct, but it's finding something that you love and believe in, and or people that you want to do it. It's that, right? Far more than the money. The money is just the byproduct of doing it. And I think if you focus just on the money, it's just hollow and it's hard to sustain because building something is difficult. Yep. It's a lot of work.
It is. Yep.
So cool. How are people going to find you and follow you? Because I know you're really about to blow up your social media game.
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram. I'm Good Real Estate by Dia.
Nice.
And then if you want to see my travel experiences, then I'm also on Instagram as Good Travel Tales.
Oh, I need that one. I don't think I have that one. Yes. I just have the real estate stuff. I love the travel.
That was always been like my first passion. Now real estate is another passion. So
nice. You're going to be like the traveling investor.
Yes. I can't wait.
Thank you so much for coming on and doing this. It was a pleasure having you. I'm glad you decided to come. Cool.